There you are. Today I'm bringing you to Malahide, County Dublin. It's about 9 miles north of the city. It's a seaside town. It's my hometown. It's kind of posh. I couldn't afford to live there anymore, but it's a great place to visit. And I went out there on spec and came across a gathering that had, as part of it, the epitome of cute. You wouldn't want to bring a shy car here. This is a vintage and veteran car show, and the cars here are quite full of themselves. Brash. Elegant. Classy and shiny. Even shiny under the bonnet. But among all the brash, showy, classy and shiny cars, there's one little car that's catching everyone's eye.
These cars came out as part of the microcar revolution in Germany just after the war. They started to produce these small cars which didn't require very much material but had a very good fuel consumption. So many people in Germany were able to get back motoring soon after the war. The man who produced this, Hans Glass was his name, and he had a grandson called Goggo, and so he called this car the Goggomobil. As a teenager, I had 3 of them. One which I drove, one for spare parts, and the other just as a kind of a backup. They were quite cheap in those days. We used to go to the tennis club hops, but in those days not many guys had cars, and for some strange reason I became attractive, but only about midnight, when people needed a lift home. So we used to give 4 girls a lift home, and a friend of mine, another Brendan, he'd be sitting on the other side in the passenger seat. He'd have one girl on his lap, and you can see how small the back seat is in this car here. It's really, really tiny. And we'd have 3 girls on the back seat there of that car. And we managed to get 6 girls into this car on the way home. But a few years later we discovered in the Guinness Book of Records that the maximum number of people that they ever got into a Goggomobil was 6 people. But the car was stationary, like we were driving around Dublin with 6 people in, never even thought the Guinness Book of Records. So one example of where the Goggo stood to us. Unfortunately I was always driving.
Chelsea, thumbs up. Thumbs up, good girl, perfect.
Thank you.
It's nice to come to a show like this here too. You meet many people who come up to you and say, oh, my father, or I had one of those cars, or I remember one of them. And it's amazing. I met some people who had worked in Germany on the assembly of these, and they were now, of course, living in Ireland, but they'd gone over there in the 50s perhaps to get work. There you go now. You see?
Wasn't that gas? The Goggomobil. Can you imagine putting 6 people into that? That's the Malahide Lions Club and their annual car show at the Grand Hotel in Malahide.